Hello. Today's episode is in the context of narrative making by United States to justify war. Last time it was about the war in Mexico. This time it's about the war in against Spain. What to achieve in this war? Then the war scenario. When was the war scenario prepared? Negotiation and narrative. Negotiations always have been covered up, but in the case of Spain, there was no negotiations. Then the war decision means to go to war. Now, the first one is strategic and ideological. The war scenario, even the war started in 1898, the war scenario was put up in 1896, 2 years before the war. It was a plan put by a brilliant naval intelligence officer called William Warren Kimball, produced that comprehensive strategic study based on narrative making. The study was to specifically justify the war. It was evil, however, it was seen to meet US imperial ambitions. So in 1986, the plan, yellow journalism, they played a major part in the war, and in 1898, America attacked Spain, and the war lasted 8 months. So, the Kimball Plan has a different name anyway. It was called Plan of Operation Against Spain, okay, which served the foundational document for US strategic planning leading up to Spanish-American War. In fact, I prefer to call it the American War on Spain. Let me point out, I'm not justifying Spanish imperial occupation and do not justify occupation to replace another occupation. The plan, you can find it on Google, by the way, Plan of Operation Against Spain prepared by Lieutenant William Warren Campbell in 1896. That's the plan. On that day, preparation for the war had started. During the uprising of the Cubans demanding independence, U.S. sent a war vessel, U.S. Maine, to keep an eye on any development. I must talk about Theodore Roosevelt at this point. In 1896, Theodore Roosevelt, an aggressive supporter of an American war on Spain over Cuba, and we all remember him with his narrative, the carrot and the stick. He was appointed Assistant Secretary of the Navy in 1897. In the election 1901, Roosevelt was on the McKinley-Roosevelt election ticket. They won. 6 months later, McKinley was killed and Roosevelt became the president. Anyway, in February 1898, a mysterious explosion led to the sinking of the battleship Maine in Havana Harbor, in the Havana port. U.S. demanded the withdrawal of Spanish force from Cuba. Spain refused. Another war was waged by the powerful against the weak, based on false flag. No need to go to negotiations, as yellow journalism had become the tool to amplify the event and to provoke hostile reactions toward Spain. You can see here samples. The destruction of the warship Maine was the work of an enemy. Here Spain is the enemy. torpedo hole discovered by government divers. That's a lie, by the way. Number three, Spain is guilty, and more and more and more, for months, to incite hate against Spain. The American war on Spain started on April 21st, 1898, and ended in August 13 of the same year. About less than 4 months. The outcome was very strategic. Destroyed the Spanish fleet in the Caribbean, on the Atlantic Ocean, but the American fleet in Mirza Bay in China, near Hong Kong, and from other bases in Southeast Asia sailed towards the Philippines and to Garcia Islands. In 4 months, less than 4 months, US occupied Guam, Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and annexed independent Republic of Hawaii. The US war on Spain signaled the emergence of the United States on world stage as an imperial power. US is now a nation the world must fear. President William McKinley unleashed the monster in the name of God again. Why God? This is a very interesting story. Interesting story, it is a fact. A group of 5 clerics from the Methodist Church visited the White House. He told them, I'm not ashamed to tell you, gentlemen, that I went on my knees and prayed Almighty God for light and guidance more than 3 nights in total. He said that God told him to occupy the Philippines and convert them to Christian. One of the guests told him, and I quote, they are Christian, Catholic. The president replied, and I quote again, we convert them to Protestant. However, upon signing the Paris Treaty in December 1898, the US paid Spain $20 million, at that time a huge amount, to cover the purchase of the Philippines, Guam, and Puerto Rico, which signaled the end of the Spanish Empire. Listen to this, and you will be surprised how their God works. God most often urges leaders to fight, not to seek peace or reconciliation. That was God's message to McKinley. One writer in 1899 flatly stated the duty and the manifest destiny, using manifest destiny again, after the war on Mexico and the Wild West. The duty of the manifest destiny of the United States to civilize and Christianize the Filipinos. They, of course, did not see things this way, and a rebellion against them started against USA. They didn't want, to replace the occupation of the Spanish by occupation of the USA. Yet, Americans continue to believe that Providence had chosen their nation to bring liberty, democracy, freedom, and economic development to people throughout the world. Americans saw themselves as God's elect nation, which had done great deeds thanks to the strength of their mighty arms. Now the nation mission would shift to leadership on the world stage. That's what they believed. So they are representing God on earth. So the war on Spain was waged by their God. The leader of the revolution, the Filipino Revolution, Emilio Aguinaldo, led the resistance against the United States. Those resistance, by the way, in the Philippines lasted for over 300 years against the Spanish. Now they have the American. They refused to exchange one colonial power for another. The war lasted 3 years, from 1899 till 1902. Now, the price Filipino paid for freedom, it resulted in massive civilian deaths, estimated 200,000 Filipino. Filipino historians said no. They claimed civilian deaths as high as 1 million civilians. Can you imagine? It's a genocide. Anyway, from 1902 till 1913, in the south of the Philippines, Mindanao, the Moro rebellion did not stop attacking the American forces. Between that time, from 1902 to 1913, 100,000 Filipino Muslims were killed by the American forces. I'm not talking about till 13. Most of them were killed during the presidency of Roosevelt till 1909. Anyway, this is America. They occupied till today. Puerto Rico is not a state, but it's under the occupation of USA. Guam also. United States, the war in Spain, put them on the first step to world domination. They wanted to change the world, to Americanize the world, create a new world order on the size of United States, the culture of United States, and the religion of United States. Thank you for watching. If you have not already subscribed, please subscribe. Take care and bye for now.